Now, joining us is Nick Hanne from the Free Speech Union, and we've had him on the show a number of times, advancing the cause of free speech and particular issues of the day where free speech seems to be impinged. But the Free Speech Union took a sort of a leftward turn this week, and quite a significant one. They actually did something that I've never seen them do before. They actually, what they call, doxed an individual. Doxing means that you name an individual and generally their details with the aim of, well, presumably discrediting them. And it's a common tactic employed mostly by the left or no, to be fair, to be right by the right as well, by activists to try and identify individuals that they find as anathematic to them. And as a consequence, I don't know what the point is, really, to embarrass them, to expose them, to bring them into public light for political purpose. Well, the Free Speech Union's done that this week. Why? We are about to find out. And Nick Hanne joins us now. Nick, welcome to the show. Welcome to the platform.
Morning, Michael. Good to be with you.
Okay, you've heard my introduction. You penned an article which was written and distributed throughout the Free Speech Union, which is why I got it. You are the Education Partnership Manager, and obviously you don't write things on the Free Speech Union without getting the consent of the union to do so. And you've gone after a man by the name of Morgan. Now, it's spelled Xiao. How do I pronounce that?
Zhao.
Xiao.
Morgan Zhao.
Morgan Zhao. Okay. You've gone after a man by the name of Morgan Zhao, and you have said that he is involved in a campaign of intimidation, essentially on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party, against essentially Democrats or Chinese Democrats or in this country. First of all, why? Why did you do that?
Well, because I think we are facing, in my part of Auckland, in East Auckland, really levels of intimidation, sort of de facto censorship amongst the Chinese community because of this individual. And there are others like him who I'm not going to name today, but there are others that are coming forward now and who are also very prominently in the Chinese community making a deliberate attempt to shut any kind of criticism of the CCP down. And this is happening to New Zealand citizens. So these are New Zealand citizens of Chinese origin, both for democracy and apparently against. And Morgan Zhao has very, very publicly said that he believes that the CCP, are the future, that they are the way to go, and that really people who speak up for democracy, like the journalist Portia Mao, who also lives in my neighbourhood, that she should be basically sent back to China or locked up. She should face the music back home in Beijing. And so this type of intimidation has an incredibly chilling effect on any kind of public discourse of this nature. And we just can't let this carry on. We've already helped Portia in her district court case where she was silenced under the Harmful Digital Communications Act. And she succeeded in overturning the order that was that was leveled against her last year by a judge in the Manukau District Court. So we've seen success already. Justin Wong from Stuff, who wrote also about Morgan Zhao, faced the same action by Zhao, and he was almost silenced, but Stuff managed to get their lawyers to help overturn, to challenge that order that was leveled against him. So what we're seeing is a systematic attempt by not just one individual. He's been the most prominent recently, but there are others now doing the same thing, and they're using our own laws to try and silence any kind of contrary view to that of the CCPs.
I'm interested in why. The rationale seems odd to me. Why on earth would the Chinese Communist Party give a rat's razoo about what Chinese nationals or ex-Chinese nationals think in New Zealand? What's the aim here?
Well, I mean, look, I'm not going to try and speak for the regime in Beijing, except to say that they have very clearly and in a systematic sense been operating abroad in many different countries, particularly in Western democracies. We've got cases in the UK, we've got cases in Canada and the US, we've had them in Australia. The Australians are far better informed on this issue than we are, or at least we may know a lot more than we're prepared to talk about here in this country. And I say that in regards to politicians. But it's about an influence campaign. It's about partly, I think, it has to do with their historical aim of reunification. The former glory of imperial China being restored in the 21st century. It's not just about Hong Kong. It's not just about the South China Sea. It's about Taiwan. It's about positioning themselves geopolitically. Now, all of this stuff is fairly widely known. I mean, the academics talk about this sort of thing all the time. And the government itself in Beijing makes it very clear. And New Zealand politicians, Australian politicians have known this for quite a while. The problem is that there are two very different value systems at play here. So that we're not talking about a fellow democracy. We're talking about an authoritarian regime, one in which there are many cases, documented cases of systematic persecution of Chinese citizens, whether it's in the west of China, whether it's in these new territories that have been reabsorbed.
Listen, just before we get into the deeper issues here, the Harmful Digital Communications Act, which you say was used to silence local journalist Portia Mayo, how was that used? I mean, how is an act of parliament which is designed to stop people essentially bullying others used to shut down a Chinese journalist by the name of Portia Mayo in this country?
So, I mean, over nearly a year now, the FSU has been basically investigating and documenting cases where the HDCA has been used in a very subjective sense. It has this component to it that allows complainants to effectively act as judge, jury, and executioner. They can determine by their own sort of confession what it is that has been done to them and how devastating it is. And effectively, there's no way of really kind of weighing that up, of objectively measuring that. It's people saying, you've destroyed my life, and that's all there is to it. And so I want to see you silenced. Now, if that's what it takes, and if that's all it takes in law to get someone shut down, to get someone silenced, then we are in serious trouble. And we've seen this. This has begun to emerge more and more in the last year or last 2 years. And so we've seen cases now that we're bringing to light. And we want the New Zealand Parliament to understand that they have, perhaps unwittingly, although there was advice given in 2015 when the law was passed, but they have largely sort of blundered their way into this by drafting a very poorly conceived and very poorly written law.
Right. The aim of that basically was to stop people being defamed and attacked personally in media like Twitter and a series of other sort of social media forum, which was a wild west prior to 2015, including, disclosing sensitive personal facts about an individual or being threatening, intimidating, or menacing. How did Mr. Zhao use that and the aims of that to effectively silence Portia Mayo?
So, Mr. Zhao, in his action in the district court, basically said that what had happened in the reporting of his story, because he was an aspiring local government politician, you see, so he wanted to be on the
He's a Labour Party member, isn't he, from memory, or
yes,
apparatus?
yes. As far as I know, he's still he holds some sort of position. I think secretary in the local electorate committee, but he was running for the Howick local board. And so Portia, being a journalist and obviously being Chinese and understanding the community, was reporting on the things that he had publicly said online and in person to many people about the CCP. And she found this very concerning, so she wanted to understand exactly where he stood on this, because here was a local government aspiring politician going out there and saying that he was all for the aims and the measures that the CCP had taken. So in reporting on this, he basically claimed serious emotional distress had been caused, that he was suffering harm as a result of this reporting. There's very valid, very legitimate reporting of a political candidate. And so, under the HCCA, he could use that as grounds to try and get her silenced. And initially, there was an
I
interim order.
understand that he could do that,
Yeah,
but some district court judge must have looked
yep.
at it and gone, "Yes, that's dreadful. I am now going to censor or stop Portia Mayo from doing this." There was a mechanism, surely, to stop that kind of thing happening, wasn't there? Did the district court judge go mad?
So this is the problem. The system under the HTCA is such that you can go to Netsafe first. So Netsafe kind of do some triaging, you could say.
Yeah,
They would look at it, but the problem is that they only have to look really at the complainant's description of what's happened. They don't seem to go into any depth, or in this case with Portia, they never actually heard anything from her in response. She didn't even know the complaint had been laid against her. She then didn't even know that the court had made this order, this interim order. And she didn't discover this until about a month after it had been made.
I
So
presume you've had discussions with Netsafe about this as an organisation.
yes, yeah,
What's
we have.
been their
Yeah.
response on this?
Well, I think they're somewhat caught between a rock and a hard place. I don't want to let them off the hook entirely, because we have tried to ask them sort of, what are you saying to government about this? Are you raising some concerns with government about the way that the system can be gamed? And we're not entirely clear that they have said much to government about it. They get a lot of work as a result of this, and I'm not suggesting that they do it for monetary gain or anything else, but they do believe that they have an important role to play. And I'm not saying that they don't have an important role to play in some instances, but the problem is the system is just wide open to abuse. And
Mm.
we've got people like Morgan Zhao, who has come in and done this to Portia Mao. He's then done it to Justin Wong. People are intimidated by court cases that are leveled against them. And they've both, in this case, two journalists reporting on the same individual, reporting on what you could argue is just straightforward political background reporting. That they've not been able to do that without this type of court action being taken against them, and it just ties them up. It's costly, it's stressful to have to go through all of this. And on what basis? There's not even any reasonable grounds to bring a case here in the first place. All other laws that we have, including defamation law, have a much higher threshold and
Threshold,
a more
yeah,
objective threshold.
yeah,
Yeah.
understood. Listen, the other thing you talk about, I found really interesting and intriguing, was that you say that in 2020, two serving members of the New Zealand Parliament, both expatriate Chinese citizens with murky links to the Chinese Communist Party, Raymond Huo of Labour and Dr. Jian Jiang of National, were quietly shown the beehive door and dropped from their party lists. Um, were they dropped from their party lists, you suggest, because of their links to the Chinese Communist Party becoming known, and therefore embarrassing to Labour and National?